It's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Louise Orton, soon to make your pro debut, national elite champion, of course. I think the best place to start is why is now the right time to turn over? Because I think after you won the national elites, there were reports you were going to get a GB assessment. There were other tournaments coming up. Why decide to turn over?
I just felt, because of my age as well, where I'm 29 now, so I was 28 at the time. I just sort of felt if I went to GB, by the time I'd had like a decent GB career, I would have been like early 30s. And I just felt, for me, that's too late to start in the pro career. And I thought, with everyone sort of turning pro anyway, like a lot of the females, I just thought there'd be more opportunities in the pro game.
When did you actually make that decision?
I think it was probably, I went for an assessment at GB, so that was, I think, around July time. And in all honesty, I didn't like it. I didn't like the atmosphere up there. I didn't enjoy it. It took the fun out of the sport for me. Which is then when I sort of thought to myself, it's going to be one or the other. And because it took the fun out of it and I stopped enjoying it, I then decided that's when the time was to go pro.
And so did you have to go back to GB and have kind of a difficult conversation with them and let them know?
Not really, no. It was just a case I made the decision myself and then just decided to go pro.
And was part of it the fact that when you join up to GB, if you get on the elite squad, you'd be there, like Monday to Thursday every week?
Yeah, it depends. It's Monday to Thursday or Thursday to Sunday. And for me as well, the career I've got already as a mental health nurse, it would have meant either like really restricting my hours or giving up my job. And at the same time, as much as I love boxing, in terms of amateurs, boxing wasn't going to pay my bills.
No.
So I had to stay at my job. So
what about now? Are you still going to be working full time? Or are you going to cut your hours a bit? How's that going to work?
I'm still working full time at the moment. However, in the future, ideally, once I've started having a few pro bouts, I'll then hopefully be looking at getting some decent sponsorship. So I will be able to cut my hours down. But for the minute, I just stay full time and work it around training.
And just tell us a bit about your job, because you work in a prison, is that right?
Yeah, so I'm a mental health nurse in the Kent prison system. So I work mainly with mentally disordered offenders. So it's prisoners that are in prison that suffer with mental health problems.
That must be quite a difficult job at times, because you have personal feelings about whatever people have done in the past and stuff, but you're there predominantly to help them and to help rehabilitate them. So it must be quite difficult at times, like ethically.
Well, in all honesty, to be honest, although we have to know what offence they've committed in terms of risk and stuff like that, it's important for me to be able to do my job effectively, to treat them as an individual and to stay sort of impartial, because then if I start judging them for things that they've done, it then affects the care that they receive from me. So, yeah, it's important, obviously, that I treat everyone as a human being the same as I'd want to be treated myself.
Of course. Could it be a bit scary at times, a bit intimidating?
Everyone asks me that, but to be honest, I don't really feel like that when I'm there. I don't feel intimidated or I don't sort of feel scared in a sense. No, I don't feel like that. But I imagine for some people it can be quite a daunting experience. Yeah. People that haven't been inside of a prison have that opinion. But I mean, once you've been in there and you know how it works and stuff, it's not as scary as what everyone thinks. It's not like what you see on the TV.
Do the inmates know much about what you do? I mean, I imagine the staff do, but do the inmates find out that you're a boxer?
Some of the inmates do know, yeah, but that's only because they overhear conversations between staff and stuff like that. And sometimes when I'm in the gym at lunchtime training, as I finish, they're sort of coming in for their session. Right. So it does overlap sometimes, but it doesn't bother me. It sort of helps build a rapport anyway.
You were at St Mary's as an amateur, and that's Chatham, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to be doing as a pro? Are you still going to be training out of there? Have you got a different coach? What's going to happen?
No. So I stayed there for a little while, but I felt for me, with going pro, like with the new experience and stuff like that, although my coach did have his pro license, I just felt to progress quickly, I needed to be somewhere where they'd had a bit of experience before, so that I could like progress like faster, if that makes sense. So I'm now trained at Amigo's gym by Richard Sawyer.
Okay. And how long
Yeah.
have you been there with him, and has that kind of rapport growing between the two of you?
So I went to him. It was probably about, how long ago was it? 8 weeks. Yeah, it was probably about 8 weeks ago that I went to him, because obviously over the lockdown, my gym wasn't open where I was training because it was an amateur gym. But then when they gave the nod for the professionals to go back training, because my gym was still an amateur gym, it wasn't allowed to open. And I was in a situation where I really desperately needed to train and I wanted to train, but I didn't have that opportunity. So I think that's what tipped me over to sort of find a new gym, because I was training as a pro, but still training in an amateur gym with amateurs. I was the only pro, so it made sense then to sort of look at wider options, and that's when I came across Richard, and went there. Yeah, it was about 8 weeks ago.
And where are you based, and where's Amigos?
So Amigos is based in Orpington, and I'm based in Rochester.
Okay, yeah, you're not too far from me. I'm in Snodland.
Oh yeah, not too far. You're in Cuxton, yeah,
Yeah, Cuxton
yeah,
and Pauling and all that. Um,
yeah,
I read that you've already had some sparring with some decent pros in terms of, I think it was Natasha Jonas, Chantelle Cameron, people like that. How long
yeah.
ago was that, and what did that tell you about your kind of how you can adapt to the pro style?
Um, well, I've been sparring Chantelle since I was about 13.
Oh,
I've
right.
known I used to do kickboxing with Chantelle, and at weekends she'd always be at mine. Like, she'd stay at mine because we'd train at the same gym at the weekends, so she'd come down. But we sparred regularly, quite often. But I first sparred Tasha, I think it was in January, because I was due to make a debut in February. So I was trying to then get the opportunity to spar with like top pros, just to see where I was at really in comparison. So yeah, I first sparred Tasha back in January, but I've sparred her about 4 times, I think, since then. I sparred her in the build up for a fight with Terry Harper.
And what does that tell you about where you are in terms of adapting to the pro style from the more amateur kind of technique?
In all honesty, I prefer the pro. I prefer the pro style, because I find amateur is more where it's only over 3 rounds, where it's 3 frees. I find everything's more rushed, and it's more sort of, you don't get the time to settle in and sort of pick your shots. It's more about trying to throw as many shots as you can to sort of win the rounds, if that makes sense. Whereas in the pro game, you've got a little bit longer. If over, obviously, I know the first fights are normally like 4 or 6 rounds, but I mean, over 10 round fights, you've got more of an opportunity to have more of a game plan. And my fitness as well, like my endurance, I'm quite good with like stamina, so I do suit more of the longer amount of rounds, if that makes sense.
When did you start kickboxing? Because I believe you fought at a very high level before transitioning to traditional boxing.
Yeah, so I went to kickboxing when I was 12, and then I competed, I think, when I was 16, was when I first had my first fight that was actual full contact, because in kickboxing they do like semi-contact, which is basically like a gym show in boxing. So I did a fair few of them, but I kept getting disqualified, because I was using full contact rather than sort of light contact, if that makes sense. So yeah, I had my first fight when I was 16 as kickboxing.
Starting to see why you and Chantelle get on so well.
Yeah.
Um, what made you get into it in the first place? Because you don't get many, even now, probably more now, but you don't get many 12-year-old girls who decide that's their vocation, kickboxing.
Yeah, well, I was quite a naughty child, quite sort of boisterous, and kept getting into trouble. And my mum didn't really know what to do, and she asked for advice. And her friend said, like, "Why don't you get her into like a hobby?" And her friend did kickboxing and said, "Oh, like, why don't you bring her down?" And she took me down to kickboxing, and I loved it, just because I was such a sort of an aggressive child anyway. Like the sports at school, like netball, basketball, and stuff like that, I wasn't allowed to play because I'd end up being too rough with people. So yeah, I ended up then going with my mum's friend to kickboxing. So it was more a case of giving me something to focus on and something to take my aggression out.
And did it work, like in terms of
Yeah.
school and stuff?
Not initially. It helped with me as an individual, but I was still quite naughty at school. But I think when I started to compete and I had to take it more seriously, and there was more the sort of the dedication and the commitment and stuff, that's when I really started knuckling down at school. So yeah, it did help when I took it seriously.
And when and why did you transition from kickboxing to traditional boxing?
So when I was 18, boxing got accepted into the Olympics, like female boxing. And that's at the point where I sort of thought, now I've got wider avenues, because although kickboxing was good, you're always sort of kickboxing in a nightclub and earning someone else money. Like you never really got paid out of it. Yeah, you got commission on tickets, but it wasn't the same. And there was no sort of governing body as such. So there was no Olympics, there was no like Commonwealth Games, anything like that. So that's when me and Chantelle both like spoke about it, and we both said let's try boxing.
Yeah, because you're the same age, aren't you? She's 29 too.
Yeah.
Are you still close now?
Yeah, we're still close.
So you'll be eyes glued to the TV presumably on Sunday night.
On Sunday, yeah. On Sunday, yeah. We're meeting up a couple of weeks after as well. We're going up London for the day just to catch up and hopefully celebrate.
Yeah, hopefully celebrate rather than drown in the sorrows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, apart from Chantelle, you obviously see more as a peer, someone you're friends with. Who's kind of inspired you in terms of boxing, female boxing specifically, I guess?
Well, I think the obvious answer is always going to be Katie Taylor, because she's the one who sort of led female boxing. She's the one who helped get it recognised. Everyone knows who Katie Taylor is, and I mean, every young female boxer wants to be like Katie Taylor. But I think now, as I've sort of progressed myself and I've seen others progress, it's more of a, not so much inspiring to be like her, it's you want to do better than her.
So when's the pro debut likely to take place? Have you got a date yet? I imagine COVID's thrown everything for a loop.
Yeah, COVID's been a bit of a nightmare at the moment in terms of getting fights. But I think Alfie Warren, my manager, had a meeting today, but I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm waiting to find out. I'm waiting to find out if there's any news. But we're hoping to get the debut before Christmas.
Yeah, well, I think they've just announced that the Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois show is still going ahead this year behind closed doors. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but it's going to be a huge pay-per-view event. Potentially,
yeah. I'm hoping Alfie can shed some light on that over the weekend.
I mean, are you just keen to get the debut out of the way, or would you like it to be on like a real marquee event?
In all honesty, I just want to box. Like I've said before, I don't mind where it is. I don't mind like whose show it is. I literally just want to box.
And for people who've never seen you fight before who are watching this, what sort of style have you got? What can they expect when they do tune into your debut?
For me, I'm more of like a front foot fighter, aggressive, go forwards fighter, rather than like your back foot counter puncher. I'm definitely a lot more aggressive.
And tell us a bit about you outside the ring. What sort of stuff do you get up to? I don't imagine you have a lot of spare time. Tell us a bit about Carl as well. It's a bit awkward because he's sitting right there, but just tell us a bit about him as well. You know, how long you guys been together? Does he get involved in your career at all? You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so outside of work, obviously working full-time and training full-time, I don't get a lot of spare time to do much. But Carl, I don't get to see him much because he is in the army and he's based up north. So I only get to see Carl at the weekends. So yeah, most weekends are spent either travelling to his or travelling to his mum's where we have his kids, or he's down at mine. But every weekend we normally do a session because he's a boxing coach himself.
Oh,
so he helps out quite a lot with my training at weekends, like giving me things to do, like working on my footwork, like tech stuff and like pads and stuff like that.
We'll have to get him a license to be in the corner because that's going to be weekends, isn't it, from now on?
Yeah, he's actually going to do his license. He's going to do his second license, I think. So.
Oh, great stuff. Just before we let you go, just tell people out there how they can find you on the different social media platforms so they can catch up with you a bit more closely.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Louise_champ1. Snapchat, I'm not actually sure what my Snapchat is. I don't know what Snapchat is, no, but Facebook, I'm on there as Louise Orton.
No Twitter?
I don't have Twitter, no.
Probably best not to be honest.
No,
most boxers would probably tell you to avoid it.
Yeah, I've been told to get it, but I haven't actually done it yet, no.
Yeah, maybe go in under like a fake name first and just get a lay of the land.
Yeah.
All right, great stuff. Well, really appreciate your time. Look forward to the debut. Alfie, get on the job, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Perfect. Brilliant.
Take care. Nice to meet you.
Cheers. Thanks you.
Carl. Take care.